This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is 2019's remake of War of the Worlds. And this is a remarkable property for me. Reason being, the idea of it is relatively simple, namely aliens invade whichever country the story is taking place in. Though, I guess, with war being a virtual national pastime for the world, it seems, it's hard to leave this little chestnut alone. When H.G. Wells' story was published in 1897 and the subsequent radio play in 1938, I don't think anyone had any idea this would blow up quite the way it has. I mean, there are at least 7 that I can recall series or movies based upon this very concept. The locations may change, the particulars may be altered slightly, the participants, of course, will differ, as will the locations, but on the whole, the concept has remained remarkably consistent over decades, which is amazing to me because I just wonder why you just wouldn't get tired of it, but it never goes out of style. Virtually every alien invasion movie since that time owes a debt to Wells and War of the Worlds. Though what I'm looking at today is a more recent version of the story, and it has added a few new wrinkles, which surprised me because referring to those prior versions, they're essentially the same movie, making allowances, of course, for the time periods they exist in and so on. But with this new version, it does some very interesting things. This version differs in that, first off, this version takes place in Europe. There have been other versions that have done so as well, though typically it's been in America because most of the movies based on this series have been American. Though it makes it a little more different than what we've seen before is that the aliens send shock troops, if you will. These mechanical things which go about taking care of the populace. Oh yes, and I forgot to mention there's also another wrinkle which is really fascinating. The aliens have literally figured out what makes us tick as living human beings. And so they've tapped into, I want to say, frequency of our brains or some type of radiation or brainwave type thing that we possess. And so what they've done is essentially put it on override. So after they land via a meteorite storm, people relatively quickly, keep in mind this series has only been on for 3 episodes so far. I want to say within the first episode, or maybe the second, yes, I think it's more the second, people begin to die just from this radiation effect that they emanate. And as I said, they send an emissary. Well, that's a little kind. It's not an ambassador. More so a shock troop to subdue the population that weren't killed by their first assault. This is interesting and something that I haven't seen from any of the versions that have existed thus far, though it's not perfect by any stretch. I find the pace a bit languid, considering the subject matter, and since the aliens, at least in those 3 episodes, don't make an appearance, but their emissaries do, or their shock troops do, you don't quite know what they look like or what they're about, whether they're going to be based on past versions, or I should say past interpretations of the aliens, or is it something entirely new. Though, I mentioned those shock troops earlier, and this is really worth discussing because it seems that the makers of this new version took their inspiration from a robot that has been in the news a bit lately. This is really problematic because I say inspiration, they literally took the same robot and painted it black. Now this is weird because first off, most people probably are aware of this robot. As I said, it's been in the news a wee bit lately. So that this is being called alien. Now, I should also mention that one of them is killed and it's opened up. And it's this kind of half machine, half human type thing. Kind of like a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. At least its workings. The new Battlestar Galactica. But, as I said, this is an actual robot. These things are on streets in certain places today. And that kind of diminishes the impact somewhat. Unless, I should mention, the series is making this not a true invasion, but let's say a conquest of Britain by the United States, which would be bizarre and interesting. And I get the feeling that's not happening in any case. So the emissary that the aliens sent is essentially in the form of a robot literally on streets today. This is weak tea. So that doesn't help. But what it has in its favor, while the pacing may be a bit slow and the aliens are nowhere to be found, the acting is stellar and top-notch, particularly led by Gabriel Byrne, who is an excellent actor. If you're able to catch War of the Worlds, I would do so. I saw it on Epix, but I believe it's also airing on Fox. It's early days and well worth the time, though it's not your father's or your grandfather's War of the Worlds. This is Brian with screenfiles.com and review.